Alô, 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 alô. Alô, 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 alô. Perfeito.
E eu não tenho um abatedor, só tenho uma luz. Só um canhão. Uhum.
Cadê meu fone? Alô, testando. Testando o som, alô.
Caraca, 25? Não pago não. 25 é muito, pô, que isso?
Eu falei, eu não vou. Eu vou comprar uma maquininha e eu não raspo o cabelo. Da onde? Cara, cortar o das doenças, nem sempre eu consigo tirar na horizontal, mas acho que as verticais que eu tirei, ou na vertical, mas acho que as horizontais que eu tirei dá pra usar na vertical também, tipo um post de Instagram.
Sim, sim. Ah, de boa.
Deixa eu ver um
É que aí dá
depois.
pra cropar, né? Cortar ela bonitinho, então. Mas faz tanto tempo que eu não mexo numa Canon. Faz uns 2 anos já.
Dá pra cortar.
Tá tranquilo. Tranquilo.
Faz uns anos já?
2 anos, pô. Eu vendi a minha no Brasil e vim pra cá.
A sua é a
Essa
Sony?
aqui é uma Sony A7 que não é minha.
Tá.
E eu tenho uma ZV-10 que é essa aqui. Eu comprei uma Sony A7 IV, só que não chegou ainda. Essa câmera é a câmera de entrada da Sony. Ela grava 4K, 4. Ela grava 1080p. Slow motion
Talvez algumas coisas assim de limpeza, sabe? Tipo, não sei, tipo, uns flyers, assim.
Samanta, tudo pronto, tá? Já falei com o pessoal do Brasil. Mexi na luz ali, ó, diminui um pouquinho o fundo, que tava aquele brancão, né? Já tá, pra mim já tá perfeito aqui. Ó. Show? Os microfones, esse aqui tá com imã, que nem eu falei. Esse aqui eu passei uma fitinha só pra poder ficar presinho.
Eu vou ir no banheiro e depois eu volto e a gente começa.
Perfeito. Beleza, amor. Eu tô aqui no evento, vai começar a rolar agora. Tudo pronto, tudo funcionando perfeito. Tudo rodando exatamente como deveria estar. tô feliz, tá bom? Que bom que você tá bem e sim, eu imagino que meu amor esteja cansada.
these on? Are these on?
Can you hear me? No.
I think there's a button to on the side. Yeah. See.
Bottom, yeah. That's better. No. Still nothing. How about that?
This one is off.
Do you know how to switch the actual microphone?
Sorry, I don't know about that microphone. Just
Okay.
about this model.
So this one is this one. This one's not working, is it?
This one's not working.
Or does it go into a?
This one's not working either.
No, there's a desk over there.
They're both not working. Try help with the big one here.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So that's the little red button made the red light come on. But
Okay.
then I was pressing that thinking it would go green. I don't know if there's a desk we have to turn on.
Oh.
So that's definitely on, isn't it? It's just possibly not switched on at the desk or something. Have you worked that one out, Ali? There's a little button at the bottom, and then you get a little screen that comes on, so it suggests it's on, but I don't think we're on. I don't think we're connected to anything. I think it's the other end that's not working.
Check this one, please. Tá, isso tá funcionando.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you. All set?
IBM created text. One of the first people to get that technology was Professor Stephen Hawking. And so his voice became famous because it was that type of technology. His voice was created by the technology that IBM made, but they didn't have the ability to connect with the disabled people who might need it. So AbilityNet sort of grew out of that connection between where the technology and innovation was, but also being able to be rooted in the community and finding people who would make use of the technology. Now, the other thing to say about that is that piece of technology was so big that he had to get a bigger wheelchair. It was a very big piece of technology, and you may remember, if you remember pictures of him, he had a screen in front of him, but all the technology was sitting underneath him. So that same technology, that's why that man's just put that there. That same technology is in there, and the speech to text, the flip side of that will be in that phone, alongside all other sorts of technologies that at one point would have been multiple boxes. So when AbilityNet started, we were really doing very, very personalised work for pieces of technology that were designed with one person in mind, totally adapted for their usage. And the point about the smartphone is that's now everybody's got essentially the same phone in their pocket, but we're all doing a million different things with it. And it's entirely possible for us to do exactly what we want to do, more or less unaided. There's going to be lots of times when you need somebody sitting next to you to explain which button to press. But that's the shift in 25 years from single function, personalised technologies that are incredibly expensive in big boxes, all doing different things, through to the thing you now have in your pocket, which is capable of so much. So for AbilityNet, one of the things that we do now, and instead of working one-to-one in quite that way, we now have 500 volunteers who can go into people's homes and provide sort of trusted support. Lots of people want some help with computers and don't know who to ask. It might be quite trivial stuff. I think quite a lot of the questions that our volunteers answer are, well, it worked yesterday, and I don't know what the Wi-Fi code is. Could you see if you can fix it for me? So really basic stuff, through to, well, I'm trying to do this particular thing for work, or I've got somebody told me my phone could do this, could you show me how to do it? Or like a whole range of different things. So those 500 people, I think they supported about 6,000 people last year. And that one-to-one support, I think, is where most of us are at now in terms of the device in front of us. We know it can do it. We're not always confident we know how to make it do it. But we're no longer relying on somebody to invent something in the lab. It's all sitting in our hand. And I think that's a huge shift in technology. And then the other thing to say, of course, is that it's people's attitudes and interests in disability, which have shifted as well in that 25 years. So it's much more likely that employers, for example, will be trying to support people in their workforce with all sorts of different interests in their productivity and how they work with their colleagues. We had lockdown when everything changed and we became so much more used to using technology. And disability is part of that story as well, because I think now it's more understood that people may be able to use technology to do something that they couldn't do before, and also your employer or your family or friends will also expect that to be happening. So those two things have come together really powerfully, I think. And so for AbilityNet, we, as well as doing work one-to-one with people, we also work with lots of different organisations. We run a conference which is happening in November called TechShare Pro, and that's sponsored by Amazon and Google and Microsoft, eBay are there. So lots of the big tech companies, but also people like the banks, HSBC, Barclays, and NatWest all support it. And your access to banking services is almost entirely digital these days. The banks, they do have branches open, but they're trying to close them. And so we're having to work out how people can access services that are digital only, and going back to that problem that lots of people have where they don't necessarily feel confident using their devices. A lot of our volunteers are helping people get online to use banking, but also because they're really scared of scams, so giving them general advice on how to avoid scams. So you'll recognise all of that, but 25 years ago, none of that existed. So we're in this sort of wave of technology which is running alongside all the changes for the lives of people with disabilities in all sorts of different ways. And so that's what I find really interesting about the work that we do, that it's a constant change, but it's also matching up to what people's needs are, constantly finding new solutions. answering questions like scams and trust, not just the technology itself, but the way it's being used. So, in that context, we have two people who are doing very interesting things with the technology, with people with disabilities in mind. So, I'll start with you, Ali, because you've got the microphone in your hand. Could you introduce yourself and say a bit about what you do and tell people, the scale and the scope of what you're doing with your app?
So hi everyone, my name is Ali Jawad. In my previous life, I was a full-time Paralympian. I retired in 2021, but for some weird reason I decided to make a comeback for LA, for my sins. But I'm also the co-founder of an app called Exercise. It's the world's first fitness app, especially designed for people with disabilities. So it allows disabled people to exercise, not only based on their disability, but also in a way that they can relate to. So about four and a half years ago, I realised that there were 71,000 fitness apps globally available, but none catered for disability. And I knew that, luckily with my knowledge in elite sport, especially at the Paralympic level, I knew that knowledge had to be filtered down to the community, and that's how the app was born. And in 4 years, we've got, I think, 6,000 active users that use the app weekly, and in 2 weeks' time, we'll be launching in Brazil. Back to where I won my Paralympic medal all them years ago. So very exciting.
Nice. And just congratulations. Could you tell us a bit about your, in terms of the business that you're running, how's the business going? Because that's really, the app is a business, right?
Yeah. So we are for profit because I want to play with the big players. So far we've got about 1,000 people paying for the app. We've raised investments. I've had to go through funding rounds. I've had to learn all that because I'm not an entrepreneur. I've had to build a team from scratch. I've had to understand code. I'm not a coder. I've had to basically kind of absorb and kind of learn every aspect of what a startup does. So my skill set is all round rather than specialist. I've got a team behind me who are very good, and the fact that I'm lucky enough, I guess, that my profile sells it, and I can get into any room and talk to some big players. So, for example, Apple were very interested in the app straight away. They think that it could be a challenge to Google's Fitbit, potentially, because Google and Apple on their fitness platforms haven't got any disability fitness content. And obviously we've got all that. So I realised that the IP was very valuable. So we're kind of plotting a way of not only making disability fitness mainstream, but making it aligned with some big players. So it's quite exciting.
Can you use this mic? If you
just pass it along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah. You can have it back.
Yeah.
So I need to ask you a question now. That's not going to work. And in terms of your growth, I mean, what in terms of users and that stuff on the app, presumably that reflects interest in society as well. That there are consumers out there looking for this stuff.
Yeah. So we've got about 6,000 active users and growing. The big growth has actually happened in industry. So on the app, you get to rate the accessibility of any gym in the local area, which that data doesn't exist for gyms and leisure centres. We've got that, which gives us a huge advantage. But also, when it comes to policy changes, when it comes to gold standard, we can actually shape that with the data that we have, so it's very powerful. So much so is that we've actually signed partnerships with companies like Future Fit, so they've integrated the app to every single personal trainer course on the platform. We've created and co-designed the first ever impairment-specific CPD course for VI, and we're going to build up a library of other disabilities. So now you actually get a qualification as a personal trainer for specific disabilities when it comes to exercise. And it'll come out next week, I think, but we've just signed with Leeds City Council, so we're going to be in all the leisure centres that they operate in the West Yorkshire, which is great for me because I graduated from Leeds Beckett, so I get to go back. So the industry now, not only is it noticing that this is a huge need, but now we're partnering with some very key players in the industry to grow it. And hopefully the launch in Brazil will make it 10 times bigger because they've actually, the government actually want us there. So having government approval is a huge endorsement for the app.
another question. Just in terms of the usage of the app, have you got any data about whether particular people with particular disabilities or particular abilities, and also their elite level versus grassroots? How does that map out?
Yeah, so the app wasn't designed for elite Paralympians. It was designed for the everyday disabled person that wants to get fit and active. We know that disabled people don't all want to be Paralympians. And, you know, I am very privileged with my background, so we've had the best facilities that money can buy, but how do we get that to the masses? So it's a recreational fitness app for disability, but it can cater for elite sport. So, for example, we've just signed a deal with the Malta Paralympic Committee. They use it for their para-athletes because they haven't got the facilities like coaching to be able to do that. So the app is very agile in how we did it. So how the app works is that we've got a video library of exercises, and every demonstrator has your disability. So not only do you get to understand how exercises are adapted and performed, but also you get to understand the potential that you have in the videos, because sometimes we don't understand our potential until we see it. And also you get to pick any exercise you would like to do, and that creates a training session for you. So you're building it by yourself. So you get full control of your journey without us giving you any sort of, we don't give you programs because we are not the expert on every single disability, but you are the expert on your disability. So our job is to get the information out there, the videos constructed in a way that's evidence-based, and we've made sure it's evidence-based through our research partnership with Loughborough University. So Loughborough partnered with the app, and we've got 3 peer-reviewed papers that are available to make sure that we're accountable in public, which I wanted, because we think that the app has the potential to potentially go to the NHS and rehab newly disabled people quicker. And the app has, well, I think in line with what Loughborough said, I think it could do that. That's the potential that we're looking at. So, yeah, some big things.
And any bias towards particular disabilities?
Yeah, so at the moment we cater for 7 disabilities, but we're going to try and grow it to the biggest kind of disability-specific library there's ever been. And it's taken us a long time to get to 7 because, as you can imagine, the evidence that has to go into these videos is extensive. And we don't just pluck it from the sky. We have to go away, do the research. My team have to sit down and really come up with every single exercise and also pilot a lot of these exercises to make sure they're safe. So the process of getting a disability into market is between 6 months to a year, depending on the disability. And we know that some disabilities have a spectrum, and we have to also cater for that too. So yes, we are slower in terms of getting content out, but we have to make sure we are, quality assured from the very beginning.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And by the way, you're going to be asking some questions later, so start writing some notes. Hi, Brian. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you're doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. Apologies, I'm losing my voice, but I'm going to make it through,
Come a long way
hopefully.
to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Mwenda. I'm the founder and CEO of Hope Tech and also the founder of Census Hub. And I think my journey started almost a decade ago in Nairobi, Kenya, where I'm from. And how I got involved in the world of assistive technology is from early on in schooling. So I went to an inclusive school. And I think Kenya is one of those few countries around the world that does integration in schooling, which I think is really important because people like me got to understand the world of disability, understand our role in it. And when I went to study engineering, I think I was just really passionate about using engineering, using technology to build assistive technology. So that's where my journey started 10 years ago. And I never set out to be an entrepreneur, really. I just was somebody trying to make things for some of my friends who are visually impaired, especially. So most of my work has spanned across many countries, but working with visually impaired people, trying to solve the challenge of independent mobility. So we started out building some SmartCan solutions in Kenya to investigating what challenges do blind people face across different countries so that we can build a product that works everywhere for blind people. And so I spent 6 years in different African countries working on this challenge, and then came to the UK with the Royal Academy of Engineering. They had a program called the Africa Prize for Engineering Innovation, and then they have a fellowship for engineers who are trying to solve big problems. So that introduced me to wanting to solve a big problem in the world, and the problem was participation for blind and visually impaired people. And since we set up in the UK about 4 years ago, we've been doing research and development. We've set up another company in Austria, and really focused on research and product development for what a mobility assistive device can be. And I think the best news ever is that a week ago we did launch our product finally, and at the fashion event, thank you, Sam, for inviting us. We were able to showcase it, and I can see some of our models in here. Hello. So that was really exciting for us, having to launch something that we've put in a lot of effort to build, and something that we believe has a lot of impact in helping somebody who's visually impaired to navigate independently. The other part of my business is called Senses Hub, which is an innovation hub based in Nairobi. We work across 20 different African countries. This time working across all kinds of disability types, all kinds of assistive technologies, just bringing all products that can support people with disabilities in Africa to them, and making it available to them.
Can you just say a bit about the role of innovation? Because you've mentioned that a few times. How does that fit in your ideas of engineering and problem solving? I guess they all stir up together to produce the solution.
Yeah, so I think when you think about assistive technology, the technology part is mostly innovation, because it's one of those areas that gets left behind when people build new technologies. I mean, if you look at blind and visually impaired people and mobility, the best available device for most people is still the white cane, which is maybe the first blind person used a stick to move. So I think that was really the most frustrating point for me. And then when you look at the innovations that come in this space, they are really detached from the users. So the people who are supposed to use them, sometimes you'd see a product and wonder if there was any co-design with users. And that was something that we really didn't want to do. So there was a lot of building and innovating with the end users, because it's something they're going to use anyway. So for us, that was really important. So I think when you look at innovating in the assistive tech space, you have to bring in the person who's going to use it and just build it together with them. Yeah.
And in your experience from the when you were learning about engineering, how common is it to involve the user? Is that like quite radical, or I mean, are engineers used to bringing in the people, particularly disabled people? I guess that's more unusual. I guess.
Yeah, I think when you build a business or any kind of business, you need funding, you need people to support your product, and the first thing you do is you come up with a product or an idea, you develop it to a certain extent, and then you start presenting it. And for most people, they fall in love with the idea, and you really want your idea to work because you think it's a brilliant idea, you think it's the best idea ever. But unfortunately, that thing that you first think of is not always the best idea. And I think somebody, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, you need to allow yourself to really listen to the end users, because that's the only way you build a product that people want to use. And the other big challenge is also on the investment or support that comes into businesses, because investors will want you to bring your product to the market as quick as possible, and sometimes people overlook certain feedback that you received. Maybe there needs to be a change. You just overlook that because you promised people you'll bring a product to market in 6 months. So we're really fortunate to have patient engineers, patient investors, patient supporters who have been with us along the journey, and also a team that really cared about solving the problem and not really being fast to market or being fast to anything, just making the best solution for this problem. Yeah.
And I guess that also gives you it does mean that your product is probably going to be better, I guess. Is that how you see it? That you're going to compete against things that have not been designed so well. Is that what's starting to happen now?
Yeah. So there's a bit of innovation happening in this space, and sometimes people send me links of things happening, but I always view our company and our product as competing with the problem. So if we beat the problem, then we beat everything that's out there. I think that has been the approach for us. So it's really I'm really happy when I see somebody using the product. And so just to describe the product, it looks like a pair of headphones that you wear around the neck instead of around the on the head, because we wanted something that is discreet, something that doesn't stand out when somebody is walking down the street, and it has a combination of sensors that scan the space in front of the user. So as the user is walking, if it picks up an object that the white cane will not detect, it vibrates with a gentle tap on the shoulder to tell them there's an object over there. And then we also have a mobile app that works together with the device. So the mobile app gives you what we call global awareness. So the device will tell you about what's happening locally in terms of the hazards, but then the app will tell you about where you need to go. How do you orient yourself, for example? And it has other features like you can discover new places, points of interest. And what's really interesting is somebody walking down the street and they're like, oh, there's an hotel on my right. I never knew there was a cafe over there. So just seeing that is really, I think, gives us a lot of joy as product builders. Yeah.
And what's the intended market for it then? Are you, because you're coming from Kenya, I mean, are you looking at particular geographies, and who do you see your consumers being? Are people going to be buying these devices for themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because when you're building assistive tech, especially hardware assistive tech, it's not like building any other product, like maybe a phone or a cup that people already know what a cup is used for. You have to do a lot of education for people. You have to, it's one of the fields where you have to build a product and figure out how people will get it, how people will pay for it, how to get it funded. So initially, we've been working with partners in the UK, in Austria, and a few other countries in Europe. So it's going to be available in those countries, because we can find ways for people to fund the product, to get the product funded for them before we make it available to other countries. So we still have to figure out how do people in different places, how are they able to afford this device. In Africa, I think the main reason I set up the Innovation Hub was because I was like, I'm going to build a product that's not going to be immediately available to Africa, so I'd better build an Innovation Hub, and we can bring all kinds of products to Africa. So I think that was the sentimental reasoning behind that.
The short term and the long term. Yeah. Ali, I saw you nodding when you talked about users. Which things did you learn from users that weren't there at the beginning?
It sounds pretty bad, but crazily, it aligned with everything that I wanted in the app. So, because obviously being disabled at the highest level, you get the highest level of education when it comes to exercise. Obviously, being around a lot of disabilities in sport, you see what they can do. So I thought, well, why not take that model and see if it works. But what I did was, from the very, very beginning, from like prototype stage, we had a focus group of like maybe 50 disabled people with varying impairments, and they went on the journey with us. So we questioned them at every stage. They got to play with the app and give us feedback as we went along. So we built it with them. And then within 8 months of the idea, we managed to get it into market a month before the Paralympic Games in Tokyo during COVID, which was nuts. We worked fast. But the fact that I had them 50 people to go on the journey with me, it meant that we tested the product like really, really well through every stage. And it meant that a lot of my biases went out the window, because obviously I'm an elite sports person, but it was about what they needed. And I guess sometimes, as you know, you feel in love with the product, but actually what's going to get it to market, you also have to think about investors and how they want to kind of have a way for you to get to the market. So I had to balance between a product that I thought was really good, but also making it look sexy for the mainstream. Because unfortunately, when we first started, disability fitness wasn't sexy. It wasn't a thing. We had some investors saying to me, I didn't realise disabled people exercised. I thought it was just Paralympians, which is crazy. So the education piece was a big thing for us. But when they saw it, they realised actually this is actually quite a cool thing, and it could change a lot of lives. So the balancing act was quite fun.
No, so let's change tack slightly. I'm going to ask you about AI. I don't know. I'll come back to you, Ali, first. is AI in your product? What's it doing for you? Where does it fit in your sort of roadmap in terms of technology?
That's an investor question, thank you. We decided early on, because we were having investor meetings from the get-go, and that question came up over and over, because a lot of the fitness apps now mainstream have AI in it. The issue is, we felt that AI did not have the ability to kind of be very specific to disabilities. I thought it was dangerous. I thought it was going to make a mistake. I thought we could hurt somebody. So we felt that actually we're going to do it in-house. And what we're going to do is, we've got that disabled data. We can train our own models based on the data that we have instead. Rather than using external models that haven't really been trained on disability, we could do it ourselves, which would be more powerful. So yeah, we've taken a stance of not yet, until we've got enough data points to train our own models, which actually could be more valuable for the company going forward, because we just felt it was a little bit dangerous. Integrity has to come over money, and that was the big decision for us. So some investors opted out, and some that stayed believed in the long-term vision.
And I think people possibly won't know, what can AI get wrong around disability? What was your experience of seeing that come through?
So I'll give you an example. We tried to test video imagery of certain disabilities, just when it comes to exercise. The issue was, it kept giving me legs. So I said, I don't know, create a double leg amputee fitness video, but it gave me legs. Like, I was walking. It didn't know what I meant by a double leg amputee. It was just simple things like that, where the graphics were amazing, like it looked real, but it was making me able. It was crazy. And I thought, well, if we tried to predict the training sessions and give out training sessions based on disability through AI, it's going to come up with things that could potentially hurt them. So we tested it ourselves in-house. We were laughing all the way through, to be fair, but it made me realise the danger of what could happen if we did implement it now.
How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear, because we also, when AI was really up there and big, we went with an AI product. So we built something like the Meta glasses. That was one of our product formats. So we built glasses that detect objects for blind people and give you feedback through haptics. And I think the first challenge that we faced was the processing power. The processing power to process images in real time was really, really high. And also, it wasn't really accurate. So we built the system, we tested it, it wasn't very accurate. It was very expensive to build, because the AI chips at the time were really expensive. So we had to go back to analog, sort of trying to avoid being technical, sort of analog ways of detecting objects, because they're reliable. Once it tells you there's an object there, there is definitely an object there. So our approach became, if we can build an analog system that's really accurate at detecting obstacles, then we can bring on AI. So right now we're starting to build AI into the app in terms of recommending routes, in terms of recommending places, that very light touch AI on the app, but not really controlling of how somebody navigates the world, because again, it's a big risk when you tell somebody you can go this way and there's a hazard there. So I don't think AI is fully trained to understand certain things, and before we get there, I'm just glad we had a product that can work without AI initially. Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing that I learned, a couple of things that have come up in conferences already about the AI, and you've mentioned it in passing, but people may not sort of understand some of the jargon, is that the AI is broadly using data from around us. It uses stuff that's on the internet, and so it's inherently biased in the way that the world is biased. So it's not great at spotting race, it's not great at spotting gender-related issues, and it's really bad at certain things to do with disability. So that's its inherent weakness, and an awful lot of work that's going on around disability and AI is actually doing exactly as you said, and saying, we know it's going to be wrong, we just need to work out how wrong it's going to be, and then try and put it right, rather than waiting for the model to catch up. So I don't know whether either of you has any plans to, like, if you look ahead, do you think the AI is getting better? Do you see it working better now compared to when you first started, or is it just flatlining? What's been your experience with that?
So we test it quite often, and what I see is that the graphics are amazing. They look very real compared to what they used to be, but it's still giving me legs. It's still giving me limbs. It's still not understanding disability types. I think in the next 4 or 5 years it'll get much better. But I feel like we are at a place where, I guess, mainstream investors see disabled startups as mainstream, and they're going to fund you that way. So if you haven't got AI, you're at a disadvantage. Even getting into the top accelerators in the world, if you haven't got AI in your roadmap, they just won't touch you. Doesn't matter how good you are. So I think from a fitness app point of view, it's, if we're thinking about an exit eventually, we're going to have to think about AI, but we have to do it on our terms, with our models, with our data set. And hopefully that data set could be valuable to the Apples and the Googles and the ChatGPT or OpenAI, because we've actually got it. But I think we have to be very careful of how we approach it. I'm still very cautious about it. I think for me, my job is to create a library that caters for disabled people in terms of their fitness journey. That is my number one goal. I don't really care about AI, but unfortunately external powers mean that we have to think about it.
I think the same thing for us, really. We have to keep a really close eye on AI and the development. I do believe it's getting better, especially thinking from a hardware perspective. The chips are growing, becoming more affordable exponentially. I mean, what was what we wanted to put in the product 4 years ago is now a tenth of the cost. So as the time goes by, these functions will be able to do much more with the product, smaller size components. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in AI for our product. And one of the reasons that actually we built this product and didn't go for a mobile app is so that we can create a platform for other people to build things for visually impaired people that are hands-free, because when you're holding a white cane or a guide dog and still using a smartphone to navigate or to do certain functions, it's really challenging. So we built a hands-free device that other people can build things and put them on the device. So we are very aware that we do need to build in AI capabilities for the next version of our product, so that people building AI solutions can be able to use it. So for us, it's something that we cannot really escape, but I do believe it's going to be better, especially now that we're having these conversations. Everybody's building data sets around disability. That's really, really useful. Yeah.
And you touched on it there. I guess for anybody, you're working in various markets in Kenya and Australia and the UK. Can disabled people afford technology? Do you come across that problem, that affordability and people's attitude to spending money on technology, obviously for lots of different reasons, but one key bit obviously is affordability. How does that impact on what your view is of people with disabilities using tech?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is affording assistive tech. And I think especially in the developing markets, trying to prove that this product is really helpful for you to go back to work, for you to go to school. It's difficult because those opportunities don't really exist for people with disabilities. Yes, it can allow me to go to work independently, but there are no jobs for me, so I'm gonna wait until I get a job. So it becomes this full circle problem that has so many players to solve different things, so that people can be able to get activities that they need to go to. So that has always been the biggest challenge that we've had, but sometimes we've proved that up, how enabling and how it can expand somebody's opportunities. So storytelling is one of those big things that we do, especially with our innovation hub in Nairobi. We collect stories about people who use our assistive technologies and what it helps them to do, what it can help them to do. And this changes the perceptions of employers, of government, and people would have to invest in this space for it to grow. So I think storytelling is really important. We need to tell success stories. We need to show that the power of assistive technology and the power of contribution from everyone to just growing the economy, growing the society. I believe there's a lot of value in investing in assistive technology, investing in different types of disabilities. I think there's an opportunity there that's really untapped by many people. And even in employment, companies that are inclusive, they perform way better than companies that are not. So trying to show this in a logical and reasonable way that people will understand, people whose only goal is the bottom line, I think that's the biggest job that we have. And then that will unlock capital for people to buy more assistive technology. But meanwhile, we have to work through government programs, through insurance, and other ways of funding it. So we still have to figure out how to get the products to people. Yeah.
And same question to you, Ali. I guess, and when you're looking at your consumers in the UK as disabled people, what assumptions are you making about their spending power? How does that play into your business plans?
Yeah, so I think for us, we wanted a free version of the app, fundamentally. But we had to model it in terms of very similar to other fitness apps on the market, because that's where we're competing. But we wanted to make sure it was as cheap as possible. So, for example, our yearly membership's only £65 a year, which is very, very cheap. But because of our partnerships in terms of the leisure centres, the councils, the organisations when it comes to personal trainers, that's where the money is. Because that knowledge that we have in the app, they need to cater for their members. So we felt that we can make the app as cheap as possible for the user, but kind of have licenses in other ways. So for example, in Brazil, it's going to be free for the user for a whole year. They get it for free. We're going to recoup that through government licenses instead. So we've tried to find a way to make it as cost effective as possible, and scaling it to the masses, because that's what you want, as much as impact as possible. But obviously, an app costs quite a lot of money to run. So we need to be able to have a business strategy where it's profitable, things are working, and people are benefiting from it. So it's been quite a hard balancing act trying to have a revenue model that fits everything. But I think eventually, the licenses are the big revenue drive for us, because it means that, companies are purchasing it to have it as an educational kind of tool for them. But also at the same time, the app eventually will cater for personal trainers. So the idea is that we're going to work with industry, with a lot of the gym chains, and there'll be a feature in the app where it's like a personal training marketplace where disabled people can book personal trainers on the app, which means that if you look at it from a revenue point of view, it's the personal trainer has to pay rent to the gym, and the more the personal trainer has in clients, they've got a huge buffer, they don't have to worry. But also, if they get more clients into the gym, that's more membership for the gyms. It's a domino effect. So you always go after the gyms and work backwards, and that's what we've done. So I think it'll be the first PT marketplace to ever do it, and they'll use our videos to create sessions for disabled people. That's where the power is. We go after where, what we think the money is, basically.
Thank you. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Anything here about the technology or the ideas of technology? Anything you've got to say about the idea of what you've heard? Does anybody want one of Brian's fancy things around their neck, or they're going to be badgering Ali for a membership in a minute? Fiona.
Can I ask Brian, sorry, are you worried about the Google Glass that's coming out, or the one that's being produced by Meta with Ray-Ban, I think?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So one of our early products was glasses, and one of the challenges, one of the assumptions we made, and one of the features that we were trying to enable is when somebody who's visually impaired is walking down the street, and for example there is a noise or something, they can look, and with the AI they can investigate what's happening there. So that was one of the key features that we wanted to enable with the device, and I think that's one of what the AI glasses are doing nowadays. But then we realized for most visually impaired people that we tested with, once there's a noise, they don't look towards it, they listen towards it, and the device faces the other way. So it's not really functional for them, and we only realized this through the testing. So so I don't really think the correct positioning of an assistive solution, a mobility assistive solution for visually impaired people is on the head, because they can't investigate the way a sighted person will investigate using the AI in the glasses. And also it's also limited in terms of the runtime. If you're taking a 2-hour journey, it's gonna be difficult to have that full charge to do that journey. And most of the visually impaired people also use glasses. So if you have very little sight left, you'd use glasses to just magnify that. So there's a lot of competition for that real estate on the eyes. So those were some of the challenges that forced us to move away from a head-focused device to a neck-worn device. Yeah.
For those who don't know, do you know about the Meta glasses? They've just brought out some Oakley ones as well. So one of the other interesting things, they're speaking at TechShare Pro about the glasses, and I've interviewed somebody from Meta about them. They didn't design them as an assistive technology. They designed them as a fashion device with the fact that you could take photos by speaking to them, all the gadgety stuff. But then they started building in some other tech, and the thing they've built in, which is particularly clever, is called Be My Eyes, which is a global network of volunteers who are sighted, who will pair up with someone who's not sighted. So that was in a phone originally, and you could say, "Oh, are these my brown shoes or my black shoes?" And then a human on the other end would be looking in on the phone and say, "Oh, those are your brown shoes." Now what they've done in Be My Eyes, the actual app, now also has AI in it, and it can answer some of those questions. So it can say those are your brown shoes or your black shoes. And so there are people using that's built into the glasses. So you can call up a volunteer and they can see what you can see. So they're quite cool ideas. The people I know who've got the glasses really love them, but they particularly like the connection to a human who can see, being able to see what you're looking at. So that's not really the technology in quite the same way. That's just the capability. So it's very interesting.
How do they make sure the volunteers are telling the truth?
Well, interestingly, certainly there's miles too many volunteers. There's like 3 million people who have volunteered for them over the years. The people I know who use it, they sometimes prefer to have a human and sometimes prefer to have the computer. Sometimes they do want to speak to a human and sometimes they don't. And one of the things that they did is they teamed up with Clearblue, I think, so that you could do a pregnancy test without a human being involved, because people didn't want the human in that bit. And various other examples you can think of, where the user is deciding whether or not to bring in a volunteer and say, "Am I pregnant?" They're going to use the AI and connect it into the pregnancy test. So there's some very nuanced examples in there where the user is deciding whether the computer or the human is involved. But there's also a social aspect to connecting up with people and volunteers. I signed up at the beginning and I never got through to anybody. And so there's like an element of competition. There's so many more volunteers than there are users of the system. So I think that whole social network thing is very interesting as well. Any other questions?
I've just launched a fashion brand website, and I wanted to know if you've got any advice how to cater it for disabled people, so like visually impaired and stuff, so they can see it easier.
Who's going to answer that one? You have a go?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think working. There's a lot of assistive tech that help visually impaired people to navigate the internet. And we always say everybody has their own way of coping with their disability. And there's one of the phrases that we use is we have to work with people's capabilities and not really stop them and introduce a new way of doing things. So you have to find out how do visually impaired people navigate such kind of websites? What kind of tools do they use? The screen readers and other digital accessibility things. So there's font size, there's contrast, there's a lot of things that you can do to improve the accessibility of your website to visually impaired visitors. I would recommend that you don't use a plugin. Do you know what the name of these plugins? That's maybe one of the examples, but there are plugins that try to make websites accessible, but I've had very negative reviews about them. But I will consult still. I'm not an expert on the digital accessibility, but just making your website accessible from the word goes that somebody who is navigating it, and probably just sitting down with somebody navigating the website to find out if they're able to shop. And now there's a European law that says you actually have to build an accessible website. And in some countries, there's even a jail sentence for if you don't build an accessible website. Yeah.
I was going to short circuit it. Brendan, how did you choose those clothes you've got on? You go, microphone.
I love being Irish, I love chatting to my Be My Eyes volunteers. We could be on there for 10 minutes or so, you know. I use it, as Mark says, in serious, and as one of my challenges with partial sight is I can't tell what colour my shirt is. Maybe someone could tell me. I have no idea. Is it white? Is it blue? Does it have stripes?
White and blue stripes.
Oh, not that one. So Be My Eyes is really helpful for that, because on a serious note, I could just point the phone at the shirt before I put it on, and they'll say just what you all did. That's exactly what happens through the app, and the volunteer could be from anywhere in the world. I think it matches up based on time zone and on language, let's say. So they are speaking English to me. And it's really helpful because in my case, I much prefer speaking to a human than AI. So that's why I always go for the volunteer option. So it's really, really helpful. And it does actually create, on a serious note as well, AI doesn't have emotions. So even though there's talk of people, you know, developing relationships with AI friends or whatever, there's something about the human voice. And as Mark said, so many million volunteers, that says something to me as someone who's disabled, that there are a lot of people out there in the world who are willing to give even a few minutes to help. So there's something deeper than just the technical solution of seeing what shirt I'm about to wear. There's also this sense I have of connection to, you know, people in the world looking to remove barriers and doing their little bit of micro-volunteering to help that happen.
Sorry, I was also just thinking about how, if you're navigating a website, because a person was asking about how would a website, what would a good website feel like when you land on it in terms of, say, shopping and things like that? What are the obvious things that you're looking for when you're landing on it? Maybe even explain how you navigate around screen readers and so on.
Sure. So I echo the point about widgets. Not every single widget solution, so there's what's called overlays, is terrible, but many of them are, because they're essentially they're clunky and they're not satisfying, and they're just not really very popular in the blind and vision impaired community. But I would say when you're getting your website designed, look for web developers who know about accessibility. So I would make that one of the questions. What do you know about accessibility? Who are the other websites where you've been able to deliver this, and where are the testimonials for the clients? Because the good news is you're not the first person to try and develop a website, you know, to reach all customers. And so I would go out there, find a web developer, ask the question about accessibility, and get the evidence from them of testimonials from prior happy customers. So specifically, the simple designs work best, the ones that have the voice tags, you know, the alternative text on the images. Those are all things that are really important for a screen reader. Very complicated websites that are very noisy and busy. They might look nice graphically speaking, but are also often very hard to access for screen readers. So the right web developer with the experience will know that, and don't rely on them just saying they know about WCAG or they know about accessibility. Actually ask them for the proof through testimonials from other happy customers.
I think the other point is it's not difficult to find someone who's your potential customer who can tell you what they think of what you're doing. That putting the user in the middle of the conversation is number one priority, really. That you know, if you know someone who's blind, they can immediately tell you what their website's like. You just send them the address and you'll get immediate feedback. That's what we're talking about when we're saying get the user in the conversation. They will have their own preferences. They will have their own techniques and technologies that they prefer to use, rather than thinking that everybody who's blind does it this way. That's also part of the lesson, I think, and how much support they're getting from someone else, you know, in terms of the process. Cool. Any other questions? No? So I've got another thing here for you two, which it says that you've got to give a 20-second message, that's 20 seconds, that you would leave to the world. So what's your 20 second? Please know I've got to do one as well.
On the spot. 20 seconds. So I think the one thing that I'll probably leave you with is, well, as a startup founder, you have to go through adversity every single day. And I like going to adversity because it makes me understand what I'm capable of. And it means I can adapt to any situation that's presented to me. And look, the most successful startups, they don't have a plan, they just adapt. They can adapt and get through things. And I'm not saying don't have a plan, I'm saying have a flexible plan. So for me, it's all about being adaptable. And I think that's what I'm going to leave you with.
Thank you. Pressure. So I think for me is to encourage all makers, and I use this word makers to include anybody making anything from a birthday cake to a fashion website. So any maker has to think about how to make whatever they're making accessible from the get-go. So this word that I got recently, born accessible design. So everything has to be born accessible. So encourage everyone that makes something to make it born accessible. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. And there's two things. One is nothing about us without us. So put the user in the process. It's just as true with technology as it is anything else. And it is infinitely adaptable. So you will find that one solution is for one person and another solution is for another person. And then the other bit that we're all trying to do, I think, is make sure that the digital world is accessible to everybody, and not to see that as being a bolt-on, but it's such a huge thing that it can do. I mean, I'm a great believer in what it's capable of, but we have to make it do it. It isn't just going to naturally happen. So we all have to be thinking positively about it, but we also have to be skeptical about whether people are going to do it for us. Cool. So I'm not sure which order I'm meant to do this in, but I think I'm now going to ask Fiona to tell us about the Blue Badge Awards. Is that right? Cool.
Actually, I can probably shout louder than this mic, but yeah, I want to launch the 7th edition of the Blue Badge Access Awards, which were devised by Bespoke Hotels along with Blue Badge Style. Blue Badge Style is me, and it's all about encouraging disabled people to go out and enjoy themselves. You know, we've been talking about, you know, people going out and doing, you know, with partial sight or going out to exercise. But I can guarantee you that the majority of people in the UK and around the world that are disabled stay in their own home most of the time. Which I think is terrible, and which is why I set up Blue Badge Style. Now, Blue Badge Access Awards are all about celebrating those venues, people and organisations that create or deliver exceptional accessibility to everybody. And what we're trying to do is encourage venues, organisations and people to think about disabled people and how they're going to get into their venue or their you know, for example, it could be Blenheim Palace. It's not necessarily the pub down the road, but we cover all of those. And what we've got this year we always have a different theme. And this year it's rite of passage. And I said, oh my God, it sounds dreadful. But someone suggested it to me. I said, it sounds slightly rude. Write up your passage or something. And, sorry, I'm a bit rude. And when I looked it up, it means an event, there's a ritual that goes with changes in a person's life. And for disabled people, they can be quite radical changes. And as I said, a lot of people spend a lot of time in their home. So this year we've got an award that's for Best Accessible Home, which then ties in with assistive technology, because assistive technology is really useful in the home. For example, telling your fridge telling you you're picking up a bottle of wine, not a bottle of milk. For me, I've only got wine and nail varnish in my fridge, but there you go. So anyway, and the other thing is we want people to nominate their favourite place. And if your nominated favourite place wins a Blue Badge Access Award, you win a prize as well. Might be small, might be big, it all depends. You have to turn up on the night to find out. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
What's the deadline?
Oh yeah, the deadline for entries is 1st of April next year. The final is on the 30th of April. And the Evolve collection, which used to be D&D London, have said we can use South Place Hotel, which is really, really cool. And we're going to use their upstairs bar and part of their event room. We're going to have live music, we have prizes, we have lots of chat between disabled people. For example, last year, it was like, from my point of view, it was a real shit show because everything was going wrong. And yet everyone seemed to be laughing and joking. I thought, oh my God, are they laughing at me? You know, it was awful. And then I spoke to someone a couple of weeks later and I said, did you really think people enjoyed the awards? He said, Fiona, they were all smashed. They loved it. So, so you buy a ticket. It's really cheap for disabled people, and make sure that carers go free. Disabled people get the cheaper rate, cheaper entry fee, and you get in and you get as much drink as you want, and food, not a lot, but a bit of food, and you just enjoy yourselves, which is what I'm all about.
Thank you very much. It sounds so fantastic. I look forward to finding out more about it. So we're going to say thank you to Kindred for hosting us. Is there anyone else I need to mention, Sam? That's the only one you've written down here. And also then to say that the next gathering will be on the 19th of November, same place, same time. And this time the panel will dive into the important theme of mobility. Before we go, huge thank you to Ali and Brian for your contribution. Wonderful. I hope you found that interesting. And thank you to Sam for bringing us all together and making it all happen. Thank you. See you all soon.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, that must be really stressful for you.
I don't know what's
must be really stressful
so,
for you.
I left my phone here to use like a microphone. It's working, so it's fine. Desculpa, o outro microfone morreu. Desligou e não ligou. Meu celular ficou
That
aqui.
is the importance of technology. Quando funciona como
Eu deixei o telefone aqui e aí eu usei ele como microfone. O pessoal falou que deu pra fazer legenda, então tá ótimo. Eu botei aqui rapidinho e falei, vai ter que ser. Eu acho que o outro quebrou, não sei o que houve ali. Quando botou junto, eu acho que a frequência de um desligou o outro. Bom, tá funcionando, tá? Devolvo isso pro pessoal da recepção ali. Dá a entradinha aqui, né? Beleza.
Obrigada.
Nada. Vou encerrar a live então, tá?